Hi guys, it's me. This week we are going to continue with our adding and subtracting of fractions. But this week we're going to be using fraction bars and a number line. For this video, we're going to first start off with number lines. Alright, number lines are not anything new. You've seen them before as early as kindergarten. So let's start off with the basic number line. Now this is our basic line. Because numbers are infinite, meaning they go to the left and they go to the right, then we use arrows. So for fractions, we know that most of the time the fractions are going to be between two whole numbers. So for our first example, I'm just going to start with a 0 and a 1. Now we know that there are numbers smaller than zeros, and we know that there are numbers that are larger than 1. And in our third example, we'll get to those, but for this one example, we're just going to stay between 0 and 1. So let's look at our first fraction. The fraction that we need to plot on our number line is 3/4. Last week, you knew that meant we drew a rectangle or a box, and that meant that we needed 4 equal parts, and that 3 were shaded. But on a number line, it's a little bit different. We're still going to have equal parts, and we need to have 4 equal parts. So, I'm going to start by dividing this one in half, because that would give me 2 equal parts. And then I would divide each of those in half. So now, if we're actually looking at the parts, then we have 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts, and finally 4 parts. So, similar to our boxes, even though this is a 4 in our denominator, we only draw 3 lines. Because our fourth line is our outside wall, and so same thing on our number line. So now that we have 4 parts, we need to label them so we know exactly where this point is located. So, 0 is the same thing as 0/4. Now we're going to come here and we're going to write 1/4 because that's one of the 4 sections. We're going to come here and write 2/4. Our last one is 3/4, but we still have 4 equal parts, and we've only labeled 1, 2, and 3. And our 4/4 would be right here. And if you notice, that's the same thing as the number 1. They're equivalent. Because when we're dividing, 4 divided by 4 will give me 1. When we're dividing 0 divided by 4, it's going to give me 0. So, now, let's keep going. We've made our number line. We've divided it into equal segments of 4ths. And now we need to plot this point, 3/4. And when we're plotting our points, we're going to draw it with a dot. But it's very important that your dot is directly on that line. So there's our 3/4 mark. So let's try one more. And I'm going to erase this bottom part so we have room for our number line. Same thing. I'm going to draw a number line, and our goal is to have a pretty straight number line. And then from there, I'm going to put my arrows because I know that the number line keeps going. But for right now, we're focusing on this particular section of our number line. So I'm going to start with 0. and I'm going to put 1 here. But now I want us to graph the point 2/5. So, how many small sections would I need on this number line? 5 is correct. And remember, if we need 5 sections, does that mean we need to draw 5 lines? No, we're going to need 4 because the last one over here would be our 5th break. So, I know that 3 is in the middle, so I'm just going to draw a middle. And then I know I need 2, and then 1. And over here, I would need 4. And technically, this would be my 5th one, which is where my 1 is. So, check to make sure we have our parts. So that's 1 part, 2, 3, 4, and 5 parts. And so with our parts, we know that we have 5 different segments. So now let's label our segments. So I know I have 1 part of 5 parts right here, 2 of 5 parts, 3 of 5 parts, 4 of 5 parts. And then our last one is 5 of 5 parts. But since our numerator and our denominator are the same, we know that that's going to be equal to 1. So now we have to graph our point. And our point says that it is 2/5. So if we're looking at our number line, we need to find 2/5. Well, 2/5 is right here. And let me grab my red marker. Remember when we mark 2/5, we're going to do a red line, and it's going to be right there. So that's how we're plotting lines with fractions on a number line. Now, our next video, we're going to take it a little bit further, but hopefully you can get the basic way of making a line. And then on the practice video, you'll practice doing thirds, and you'll practice doing 6. Bye.